Aaron Carter.
Right.
Kind of hard to hear that name and not immediately think like 90s pop star bubblegum.
Totally.
But the deep dive we're doing today, we're using this Spanish language video essay as our guide. And let me tell you, it goes way, way deeper than that.
Yeah.
This is about a life, right? Like lived out in this crazy spotlight, the struggles that come with that kind of fame, and honestly, some really uncomfortable questions that still linger even after his passing. So I guess the question is, what did we miss about Aaron Carter while he was still with us?
And what struck me, I think, right away about this video essay is how it frames Carter. He's kind of positioned as this like rebel.
Yeah.
Someone who challenged all these expectations placed on a young star, especially back then,
Yeah.
And he was often labeled as difficult
Oh, yeah?
by the industry.
Yeah.
Which the video argues really speaks volumes about his refusal to be like just another manufactured pop star.
Yeah, let's unpack that for a second. You use that word manufactured, which, I mean, feels particularly relevant in the entertainment world, right?
Right.
What specific examples from Carter's life does this video use to highlight that whole rebel image?
It points to a bunch of instances where Carter was very outspoken.
Yeah.
About what he saw as straight up hypocrisy within like the music biz.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid at all to call out double standards, which is, to say the least, unusual.
Right.
For someone trying to build a career, especially at that age. This wasn't just like typical teen angst stuff. He was really articulating these criticisms that, honestly, even seasoned professionals, they shy away from.
Yeah. It's interesting because it makes you wonder about the cost of that honesty, right? Oh, yeah.
Like, was he penalized for not playing the game, by their rules?
Right.
And the video even hints that maybe like this outspoken nature of his might have cost him opportunities.
Definitely. And this is where the video essay takes this really, I think, fascinating turn. It brings up Carter's history, his past, with, the Michael Jackson allegations.
Oh, wow.
And apparently Carter claimed that he was practically, coached
What?
on what to say about Jackson as a child.
No way.
But then later in life, completely flips the script, starts defending Jackson, even suggesting there was a conspiracy against him.
Now that's a bold move, to say the least.
Yeah.
Considering the potential backlash, especially years later.
Yeah.
I mean, it speaks to a level of conviction there, don't you think? Absolutely. And it really makes you question, I think, the narratives that we're often given, and we just take them as fact.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to public figures, It's not to say that one side's right or wrong or whatever, but just Carter's willingness to actually revisit that part of his life.
Yeah.
And offer a different perspective. It's pretty telling. This was not someone who was afraid to challenge those established narratives at all. And that desire to kind of speak his truth, even if it meant, ruffling some feathers along the way. It kind of seems to be this recurring thing with Carter.
Yeah.
And it's especially, poignant when you look at all the circumstances surrounding his death.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about Aaron Carter without addressing the cloud of speculation that still hangs over his passing, right?
Yeah.
It's a tragic story no matter how you look at it. But yeah, the lack of clear answers, it adds this whole other layer to the mystery.
Definitely. And the video essay, it doesn't shy away from this at all. It acknowledges the official reports and all that, but it also really highlights, I think, those unanswered questions that, fuel so many of the conspiracy theories out there.
Right.
And you can see why people kind of gravitate toward them, right? Trying to make sense of something so sudden, so seemingly, inexplicable. It's a very human response, right?
Totally. It's almost like Carter's life and death, they get swept up in this need we all have for an explanation, like a neat little narrative that we can fit into how we think things work, especially when it comes to celebrities.
It's that whole rise and fall narrative, right? That we see repeated over and over. And yeah, there might be elements of truth in there, but I think they often overshadow, the complexity of a human life. The struggles that maybe don't always make the headlines.
It reminds me of, you touched on it earlier, that whole idea of the media profiting off of those very struggles.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the video essay does, I think, a really, really insightful job of connecting those dots. It really highlights how those same media outlets that were so quick to label Carter as, troubled, they were the same ones profiting off his every
misstep.
Exactly.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
It is.
The more someone struggles, the more attention it draws, the more it sells. It's like there's almost a financial incentive to keep those narratives going, even at the expense of, the actual person.
Yeah. And that is a troubling thought, isn't it? And that's what I think is so interesting about this video essay. It's not just like recounting the events.
Yeah.
It's actually making us question the systems, you know,
Yeah.
the systems that perpetuate these patterns. So like, was Carter exploited by this industry that ultimately benefited from his struggles?
Wow.
It's an uncomfortable question, but I think it's one we kind of need to be grappling with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a question that goes way beyond just Aaron Carter, right?
Did
We have seen this pattern play out with so many celebrities, particularly these young stars that, they essentially grow up under this constant microscope, this public eye.
Especially now.
Yeah.
With social media. I mean, it adds this whole other layer of pressure. It's just this relentless cycle of judgment and speculation. And it makes you wonder, honestly, about the long-term effects, the toll it takes on the people caught in the middle of it all.
It makes Carter's story even more tragic knowing that he was navigating all that at such a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, this was long before social media kind of amplified all that to the degree we see today.
Absolutely. It adds a layer of, I think, empathy for his experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can kind of see how someone who is just trying to navigate all those challenges, battling their own, demons, it makes sense that they might make choices that to us on the outside seem erratic or, I don't know, confusing.
Choices that then, of course, become fodder for more headlines, more speculation, more judgment. It's like we lose sight of the person, It's all about the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think this video essay, it's in Spanish, it challenges us as viewers and as, like, consumers of media.
Right.
It's so easy to get, like, sucked into the headlines, the speculation. It's almost addictive, this whole celebrity narrative thing.
Totally.
But this video, I think it reminds us to look beyond that.
To see the actual human at the heart of it all.
Yes. And to ask ourselves, like, the hard questions. How do we contribute to this? Are we consuming these stories responsibly? Are we thinking about the impact on the actual people?
Because there's a real human cost to that kind of, like, scrutiny.
Absolutely. And I think Aaron Carter's story, as tragic as it is, it can also be this really powerful reminder.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to approach these stories and the people in them with more empathy, with more understanding.
To maybe hold back on the judgment a little bit and realize we rarely have the full picture.
Exactly. And, for any listeners out there who maybe are finishing this deep dive feeling, I don't know, maybe a little sad, a little angry.
Yeah.
About, like, how Aaron Carter's life ultimately unfolded, I would encourage you, seek out his music. Listen to his interviews. Read his own words.
Go beyond those headlines, those prepackaged narratives, right?
Yes. Because he deserves to be remembered as more than just a cautionary tale.
Aaron Carter was a complex person.
Right.
And, like all of us, deserved to be seen, understood. And while his life was cut short, his story, it still sparks these really important conversations about the music industry, about media scrutiny, about, like, the cost of fame.
And maybe most importantly, it reminds us to look for the humanity in every story, even when it's messy, even when it's painful.
It's a reminder that we're all kind of like, we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
And a little kindness and understanding, man, it goes a long way.
It does.
So next time you see that headline, or you feel yourself getting pulled into one of these, like,
sensationalized.
there's stories, take a second, just pause. Remember the human being at the center of it all.